In a way, the 2020 election was stolen from us because the deep state decided that they wanted to install Joe Biden. They got their 51 intelligence agents to get involved. We're going to go over this and much, much more. To help me with that, I have Representative Tim Burchett. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me back on, Stephen. It's a pleasure.
Third time's a charm, so I'm excited to go over this information. Sir, you are calling for an immediate investigation of Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the 51 former intelligence agents that he rounded up and begged to lie to the American people about Hunter Biden's laptop in order to install Joe Biden as president. Why are you doing this? What kind of support are you getting from your colleagues? And do you think that these people should have their security clearance revoked?
Yes, they should have their security clearance revoked. Absolutely. They have misled the American public. And if they did it just on, obviously, somebody had orchestrated something, because it's like the major networks when they, I'll say the Democrat talking points from the Democrat National Committee, and it's within, the verbiage is almost identical. Their verbiage was very close too. And it's a classic case of groupthink, corruption, deep state, all those things. And I think it's appropriate for the Oversight Committee to call them in. I want to know their thought process. I want to know who they talked to. I want to know who instructed them, if they were. And I think that's within reason. I've often said that, intelligence community is sort of like the congressional ethics. I really don't think it exists. And this is another example of it. These are people that we put our life, that literally we make life and death decisions on. You might not hear about it in the media or on the internet. Folks back home, back here in Knoxville or in East Tennessee, might not hear about it. But a lot of things go down that I'm privileged to learn about that are not shared with the public. And these are the people that they call on that are behind the scenes making those life and death decisions. When we have military incursions or SEALs or someone else are called in, Marine Raiders, what have you. So it's very important. It's life and death, actually.
Now, isn't it true that Antony Blinken, who was running then Joe Biden as presidential candidate, his campaign, didn't he in fact call in favors and ask the acting head of the CIA, hey, let's cobble together this letter. It needs to happen very, very quickly because we have a debate, and Joe Biden needs to be able to point to and lie to the American people that this is Russian disinformation against his son.
Yeah, apparently that is what went on. It was some sort of quid pro quo. It's, taken care of. Look, the bottom line is they don't want Donald J. Trump in the White House, and they'll do anything to keep him out of that. And this is just evident. I mean, they went, but they do this stuff all the time. And because these agencies are run amok with leftists and Marxists and communists, and we've allowed this. And when President Trump came in the first time, he made some key decisions and key changes, which were very good. But the problem is as these alphabet agencies are so huge, you got to get down in 2 or 3 layers before you get to some of the real problems. And then they just these groups just kind of go from within, and they move up and down the food chain, so to speak, on how they play the game. And to me, that's very dangerous, and that's very chilling. The effect that it's having on this country. I worry for our future, because this has been going on for quite some time, but now it's just in overdrive. I mean, you have a Justice Department that goes after moms at school board because they don't want pornography being taught to their children, and they're labeled domestic terrorists. You have people out here pro-life, people out protesting in front of clinics, and then instead of, if they want to talk to them, call them in, call their attorney like they would some Wall Street banker they're going to bust for stealing millions upon millions of dollars. But no, what do? They get their SWAT team and go in the middle of the night and kick a door in and terrify a family. This is the way this group is operating, and we've got to realize that Americans, 20 million so-called conservatives decided not to go to the polls. That's how we got a dawdling old man who can't pour water out of a boot if the instructions are written on the heel.
Yeah. Confirm this for me. Is it true that many of these 51 intelligence agents, they're retired, but they take their security clearance with them and they go get jobs that pay $1 million, $5 million, $10 million off of these intelligence clearances?
Yeah, well, you don't know how much they're getting paid is the problem. And I worry about who's paying them. I'm sure there's some disclosure somewhere, but they're not. They've shown to me they're not men of honor, the vast majority of them. There might be some that just got caught up in it, or the white flag, so to speak. You get a lot of that in this business. They give you information that's not true, and you jump on board with it, and you get busted. This is one of those cases, and they got caught with both hands and both feet in the cookie jar on this one, because you're exactly right though. That security clearance is a very valuable thing. Like a congressman, myself, or even my chiefs of staff, they'll end up getting a security clearance, and if they can keep that is a very valuable thing. It allows them access to things that you and I would not have access to, and it's a gross system, and it needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, I see three scenarios with these 51. They either knowingly lied, or they went along, oh, hey, we got Mike Morrell, we've got Clapper. Oh, if they're going to sign off, I'm going to sign off. Or the third scenario is they're not really good at doing intelligence recon. Do those three sound about right to you?
Well, I think you got groupthink in there but yeah, I think they're very good at what they do, and that's why they put this out. They do not want Donald Trump in there. He would upset the apple cart. Not a lot of intelligence needed, when we're at peace, when our enemies fear us once again, where we understand that maybe our economic might at some point, eventually, if you screw up enough, if a bunch of old white dudes in Washington screw up enough, you got to call in the young troops. Literally, old men make decisions and young men die. But we've just come off the rails on this one. This was deep state. This was at its worst, and they know Trump upsets their apple cart because they are not needed, and they would not be called upon because he knows them. He knows what they're about. He sure as heck knows what they're about now. And I would hope he'd come in by executive order and cancel all of their security clearances.
Yeah,
I think this is sickening. I mean, this laptop is right as rain. This is a White House, again, over $20 million money, China, all these other groups, bad actors, horrible people, and never showed that they've even paid any taxes on. The IRS, the whistleblowers, just how bad these dirtbags are. The whistleblowers, there's two guys, all right? And there's a gay guy who, lifelong Democrat apparently, who's married to another dude, right? It's not my business. Supreme Court has taken that out of my hands. But literally they outed him, to the public. Like, I mean, what the hell? This, it's very Clinton-esque, if you ask me. They're just going to destroy them. It's like the Trent and the Clinton White House when they had the travel agency that was there. Wasn't printed much because it was during the honeymoon phase, but they had a travel agency, and the Clintons wanted their group out of Arkansas or wherever, probably shady, in my opinion. Maybe they had kickbacks, I don't know, to some of their friends. And so what did they do? Instead of firing the people in the travel office there in DC, they destroyed their lives. They made them out to be crooked, and they weren't. And they just destroyed them. And they had to go out on the road, literally, and raise money on the early days of talk radio. And, and that's what this bunch does. And there's no loyalty in this town. Yeah, well, there isn't mine. I'm back in Knoxville, but in Washington, D.C., brother, Stephen, there is no loyalty. And both parties are guilty of it. They come home and they preach, we go to our Lincoln days or Reagan Day dinners or what have you, and we throw the red meat out. Nancy Pelosi's making 40%. That guy, we got one congressman was making over 300% investment. My money's down here called Gay Street. It's just right up the road here, not 100 feet from where I'm sitting right now. My buddy Tommy Seiler manages my $6,000 portfolio. So I'm not on the insider trading track, but both parties, man, both parties. This is just sickening. It's sickening. And then you have the press secretary. They ought to just run her live on Saturday Night Live, having to defend Biden when they're walking him off the stage. So that Obama doing that, it's everybody knows. The Democrats they even joke about it now, just outwardly. Yeah. They're not in Washington. They're not even hiding it anymore.
Are you the Republican that's creating the deep fake videos to embarrass Biden, like Karine Jean-Pierre says?
Yeah. It's the truth, man. It's not AI or anything. She's that's what I say. They ought to just give her a credit on Saturday Night Live and just run her stuff just unedited, because nobody's believing this stuff. Nobody's believing this. This poor guy's in bad shape.
Yeah.
And that's why, honestly, I think they can't. He's liable to say anything or do anything, and the string pullers can't control him. That's why I think they'll probably try to dump him at the convention. I know that's a big pull, but I just they cannot release power. They think. I remember one time here in Knoxville when they did away with term limits, and they were interviewing somebody, an office holder, and they said, I don't know if this county is going to be able to survive without us. And I thought that was I checked my watch, my clock to make sure it wasn't April 1st. I thought that was a joke, but they're serious. But that's the mentality of these clowns. They're in power. They're arrogant. The Bible says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools.
Yeah.
And I think they're foolish.
So this morning I read that John Solomon over at Just the News, he broke a story that Hunter Biden had created a secret LLC in the country of Liechtenstein, where the owner of Burima Energy that gave him this $1 million cush job with zero experience had agreed to fund $120 million for Hunter Biden to invest and manage with no experience. Is this just another nail in the coffin of Hunter Biden being an unregistered foreign agent, making investments and being paid large sums of money off of the Biden name? Because this wasn't like $1 million or a $3 million mysterious payment from the mayor's wife of Moscow. This is $120 million, and the FBI has known about this for 8 years and kept it hidden from the media for 8 years. What are your thoughts on this story?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, like I say, if Tim Burchett can find out where they're laundering money, the Bidens were obviously falling asleep during at mob school when they were at money laundering class. It doesn't surprise me. But here's what I think can happen. When you see this stuff coming out and there's nobody protecting them, or that's when they've thrown them under the bus. So they've been holding on to this stuff. Obviously, they've been holding on to this for how long? How long has it been? 6? What did they say? 6 years?
8 years.
8 years. Okay. And now it's just coming out. This is not by accident. This is what I'm saying. They're going to start putting the nails in the coffin. But the Justice Department, remember this: the Justice Department will not investigate. But when they start to investigate, that's when you know that it's over. That it is over, or unless they just pile on so much stuff and all the TV stations come after him. CNN and ABC, NBC, and CBS, they start reporting this and say, they editorializing like they do against Trump and start saying how awful it is. This is inexcusable. Then they're getting ready to dump him.
Okay, let me throw out an example. You tell me if I'm on the right path. So, Governor Andrew Cuomo, best governor of America, handling COVID correctly, No, he didn't touch that woman inappropriate. No, he isn't, sleeping around. He isn't abusing his authority. Oh, wait a minute. We can't cover this up anymore. You've got to retire. You've got to resign, right? That's what you're saying is they're going to now start piling on the Biden family until he says, you know what? I'm going to spend the rest of my life being a grandpa. I'm stepping down. Is that what we're about to see?
I think so. I could be wrong, but I cannot imagine them. This is what they're betting their whole future. This is what they're betting all of Washington, all the deep state on, is this guy. I can't imagine that.
Yeah. When you think about it, it's like, okay, can we just weekend at Bernie this meat puppet until November 5th? And then he can say, oh, you know what? I'm exhausted. I'm going to hand it off to Kamala Harris and she can pick a new vice president. I'm going to pardon Hunter and sail off into the sunset. It wouldn't shock me one bit if that's what happens.
No, me either, except I just can't imagine they'd want Kamala. She's not really smart. And in my opinion, she's a pretty mean lady. You look at staff turnover in her office, that's kind of the worst kept secret in Washington.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That is, you look for those, like, what are the red flags? No one wants to stick around, right? Like, that's a pretty big red flag. Okay. Final question. I appreciate you coming on. 20 of the 31 members of NATO aren't paying their fair share. This just came out in the news.
Yeah.
Yet the American taxpayers are asked to cough up more and more money. Biden signs a 10-year agreement with Ukraine to give them our money. And now they're reinstituting the military draft. Are we going to give them our children's blood and all of our money just to cover up some secret in Ukraine or some war that none of us want to be involved in anymore?
Yes, maybe. I mean, it's on the altar of the almighty dollar. But that bill, the draft thing, it's they registered for the draft. Of course, I had to register. I'm 59. I remember I was 18. My dad took me down to the city county building. I had to register for the draft, and he was humming the Marine Corps hymn when he did it, which I thought was kind of funny. My dad was an old World War II Marine, but I don't see all of that taking place, but I do see us continuing to fund these NATO. What people don't understand about NATO, it's just a piece of paper, really. It just says we're going to provide a certain amount of our GDP is going to be put into the military, and if one of these other countries gets attacked, then we will follow through. But here again, Trump busted their ass on that, and these countries are going to have to start paying their fair share, just like Ukraine. We've been paying more than our fair share on Ukraine to fight a country that's Russia, that's GDP is somewhere between France and Canada right now, and just disregarding all of China pretty much and what they're doing on our border and coastal, some other stuff. But yeah, I could ramble about that all night, but I think we look after our friends, but we still can't be the world's police force.
Yeah. Do you think if Trump wins and is reinstated, do you think in his first 100 days he's trying to get Putin and Zelensky to the peace agreement table, or is he going to back this war?
I see Zelensky he better cut a deal, because Trump's going to cut a deal. And he'll get them all in the room, and they'll cut a deal, and that war will be over. I think that war will be over. Okay. Didn't have any major. Remember Soleimani? Soleimani was a terrorist. He was as Trump would say, a bad hombre. But they took him out at a particular spot. They didn't get him at the airport. They didn't get him when he's in a crowd. They got him out on an open road. And only nobody died that shouldn't have, like the early days of Las Vegas. Only people died should have died. And you know how they identified Soleimani?
No.
I saw the photos. They were his ring finger. That's about all that was left of that joker. But it was a special ring that he wore. I saw a picture of him out somewhere. It was a special ring. I mean, I saw his shin bone up against a guardrail, and it's just charred body, face. And but that's what they understand, and what they fear is Trump's a cowboy. He's not going to ask NATO. He's not going to ask the United Nations for permission. He's just going to blow the hell out of them because they're bad people, and that's what they understand. Under Bush, on both Bushes, under Obama, you know, they would have called the UN or called whoever and say, hey, we're getting ready to bomb y'all. You better move your stuff, you know. And they did that. They played that little game. Not with Trump. He doesn't care. And you know, that's why they fear him. And that's why they're going to do everything they can. It upsets their apple cart, industrial war complex, the rest of them. They are or the war pimps, as I call them. They're afraid of him, and they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Congressman, for coming on. I know you're busy. Keep up the good fight. Let us know how we can be helpful to you. We've got an army of conservatives that watch this channel. If you need us making phone calls or backing you, please let us know. Otherwise, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Stephen, thank you, and thank the good folks on there. And thank you so much for putting the truth out. People talk about you and your show, and I dig that, man. And I appreciate it, brother. And I appreciate the support. And please, I appreciate any support, any verbal support that anybody would give me, of course. But what I would appreciate more is that you pray for our country. Of course, we could lose this thing. I think we are hanging on the cusp.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.